Welcome to Marketplace Mission. Join us as we explore how visionary leaders navigate challenges, discover purpose in profitability, and create environments where faith and business intersect. Marketplace Mission is your guide to unleashing the power of purpose in the workplace.
Welcome to another episode of Marketplace Mission. Today I'm excited to welcome Frankie Little, the owner of Roosters. Roosters is a restaurant right here in the heart of downtown Mobile. They offer culture-focused foods ranging from their delicious jerk chicken tacos to their loaded queso, to their appetizing hen house burrito. Not only is their food fresh and aromatic, but the culture of Roosters is what keeps customers returning. Roosters is grounded in community, involvement, and consistent in service. Roosters has a finely tuned model by their team. Their operations are streamlined to ensure success for other potential franchises. Well, welcome, Frankie. Thank you for coming, buddy.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I just have to say this. On my way into work this morning, I was telling my wife what we were setting up the show for. And we were passing each other. She was dropping the kids off, and I was coming in, and she said, "So what's today?" And I said, "Oh, I got Frankie from Roosters." And she said, "Well, tell him I want the jerk chicken."
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear. I love when people can like identify a specific thing. That's their thing,
right?
You know, I mean, because it's not just like, oh, I like them. It's I like that.
Right.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, I think you've done a good job so far, because I know you do some promotional stuff too. And just quickly, I was over there when they were doing the Tiki weekend, or like the Tiki theme, and I had the Tiki smash burger with like this pineapple on it. And I think the people were looking at me like I was disgusting, because I was sitting at the bar where you have the open kitchen, and I was just salivating at the mouth about it. And she was like, "So do you love it?" And I was like, "Girl, this is the best hamburger I think I ever had."
Oh, really? That's awesome. Thank you so much.
So.
Yeah, that's some friends of ours that started that Tiki Week down here in downtown Mobile years ago, and now it's grown. Every year it gets bigger and bigger, and we always participate. So.
Well, I'm going to continue to participate, because the Tiki burger was wonderful.
Awesome, thank you.
So we're going to talk more about the food in a little bit for sure, because that's kind of the spotlight of the whole thing. At the end of the day, won't you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit maybe about how, Roosters itself got started, and what was the kind of the motivation behind it?
Yeah, I'll give you the broad overview, I guess, background. I grew up in South Alabama in Foley, grew up on a farm, blue-collar, hard-working people. My mom worked at an airplane manufacturing, parts manufacturing plant. My dad was a welder and a farmer. So my grandparents, we lived on the farm that my grandfather started. Big gardens, we had cows, we had pigs, we had chickens. My grandmother, who I grew up next door to on the farm, my grandfather met her in the Navy and during World War II, right. But she grew up in Boston, but actually half the time in Boston and half the time in Central America, because her father, my great-grandfather, worked for a company that was based in Central America. Right. And so she spent most of her childhood, or half of her childhood, bouncing back and forth between the Northeast and Central America, and then I grew up on a farm in South Alabama with her. So it's
that's in Foley, right?
In Foley,
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
and so,
awesome.
An interesting hodgepodge of my family had an interesting mix, and
right.
So I had my grandmother cooking, Latin American style dishes, like she cooked plantains and beans and rice and things like that, along with Southern staples. Of course, we had a big garden. We had our own pigs, our own chickens, our own cows, and so, we had your, steak and potatoes and stuff, right. And, your regional, Southern food, fried okra and stuff, but mixed in with some of that Latin American.
So it was that Latin American taste you got in your mouth early, right? From your grandmother that kind of influenced what you're trying to go into now,
exactly.
Right? And then I think I read where you kind of took a trip to Central America maybe yourself, and kind of this is where some of these flavors came back into your mouth again, right?
So it wasn't just about the food, it was also the stories. She had wonderful stories about her time down there, pictures, really interesting, cool pictures. And so, that kind of sparked in me the desire to travel. And so I was always, interested in getting out. I always, I had an itchy foot and I just wanted to get out. And so I graduated high school, did not go to college. I took a different path. I was going to go to college, got sidetracked, didn't do it. And in hindsight, I'm glad, because I probably would have been buried in student loan.
Yeah, right.
But for like an art degree or something.
Somebody out there saying amen to that right now. Right? Yeah.
And so I took a different path. And that path, sent me on a side quest, let's call it, that lasted for several years, where it was a lot of just kind of a bohemian lifestyle, traveling. Gotcha. And that involved some trips to Mexico and Central America, and some backpacking, and some kind of just some hitchhiking and all kinds of stuff like that. And wow. And some trips out to the West Coast and Texas. I lived in Austin for a while, and so anyway, kind of developed this, and I was always coming back home. I was always kind of right. making my way back, and through those experiences, I developed a love for traveling through the Southwest and Texas. Developed a love for that style of food, and then down into Mexico and into Central America. Even more of a love for that fresh style, Latin food.
Well, it sounds like you've kind of always been adventurous, we'll call it, right?
Yes.
So I think then
risky. Let's call it risky.
Yeah,
my mom would say risky.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. She was very worried for a number of years. Yeah.
Well, we can all understand that from a mother's point of view.
Exactly.
Right?
No, and now that I'm a parent, I totally get it. At the time, I was like,
So it's funny when you say, when we think about risky, or we think about these adventurous times from backpacking and all these things, because we always say, and we ask people even in the food business, right? So are you an adventurous eater? So I think what you've done is you've kind of take, your personal adventures that you love to do, the backpacking, and you found an area you love, and then you wanted to kind of bring some of that adventure home for somebody who may not be able to travel or backpack, but they want to be adventurous. They just need to do it within an hour or an hour and a half right here in downtown Mobile, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of research shows that over the last 20 years, people are spending more money on let's say being an adventurous eater, or being an experiences. Right. Back in the day, people were more probably guarded with their money, and they didn't really spend it on experiences. But it's a much different world now. People like to have experiences, and so, and if maybe they can't travel to Central America today, maybe they can tomorrow, but maybe today they can just eat at Roosters.
Yeah, and well, at the end of the day, it's Roosters that influences me to go, where did this come from? And then they want to go there too, and no different than I think what your grandmother's experience gave you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so I think what you're doing is you're serving up your grandma's food still, but right here in downtown Mobile. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Which is super cool.
Yep.
And so when we talk about your grandma, I can see that, family's important to you. When I read your story and I understand you, why don't you talk about your family a little bit, how they're blended into the business maybe, and maybe some of the things you do outside of the business because of some of the family things you've been through maybe.
So that's what made me put roots in Mobile. I met my now wife. She lived in Mobile, and we started dating. I moved in with her in Mobile. That's what essentially made me kind of settle into Mobile about 20 years ago. And that's when I really started getting in the restaurant business. I'd worked in restaurants a little bit before that, but I was in my mid-20s, no college education, so I was just kind of bouncing around, and floating around, not really having any direction. And I got into the restaurant business when I moved in Mobile, and just decided, I really like this. I love the fast pace. I love getting to learn about cool food and getting to work with cool people and learn about cocktails and wine. And I just started to get interested in it. I decided, if I'm going to work in a restaurant, I want to be the best waiter I can be.
There you go.
There's a lot of people like, I'm waiting tables just because I'm trying to do this other thing. And I was like, no, this is it. I like waiting tables. I like it. So I want to, I want to go all in on it,
Right.
So then it progressed into going all in to bartending, or to management, and, working in some kitchens a little bit, and just learning every aspect of it. And so going back to the family thing, then my wife and I had our first kid.
Everything changes.
Everything changes. Literally, I tell people,
everything changes.
You feel like at least my experience, you feel like your DNA just switches. There's some kind of switch that kicks in. Literally, as soon as my first daughter was born, it's like, okay, life just changed.
Well, wait till you get a grandbaby.
I'm looking forward to that.
I just got a grandbaby 12 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations!
If you think your DNA switches like that,
it's a different switch, right?
Yeah, because it's like from discipline to no discipline.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Just the fun stuff.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, having your first kid, you start thinking about the future. I mean, at least for me, I didn't really think about the future much until having kids. It was like, I'm just going day to day, bouncing around. I'm risky. I'm having fun. I'm bouncing around. And then it's like, okay, then you start to think like, oh man, now I got to think 20 years out, 30 years out, 40 years out. What's my life going to look like? What's her life going to look like? What's my wife's life going to look like? What am I building here? What am I doing here?
Sure.
And so then, that's when things start to, change in your mind, and slowly but surely, really started to really formulate those ideas and changes into action plans, I guess you could say, into being like, okay, I'm tired of working for other people. I want to work for myself.
Right.
And the restaurant business is what I know. And so
you talk about working for other people, and I know in the beginning when you were trying to get this thing started, you didn't have a whole lot to get it started. You had enough, right? But you needed to bring other investors in on that, I think, is how you raise that money, right? And so I think it's important for people to understand from the marketplace mission side that when you have a mission in the marketplace, sometimes you have a vision, you just don't have everything you need to fulfill the vision, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's where you have to get good at presenting your vision, right? Exactly. And so I assume you presented your vision to others. Maybe tell us a little bit about that so we can help others who are kind of in that stage. Yeah.
Sometimes you can call it divine intervention or just whatever you want to call it, but sometimes things just happen.
Right.
But nothing ever happened without you putting something into it. It's the law of the universe. You get in what you put into it, right?
Right.
And you don't get energy from nothing. You got to put energy in to get energy back. And so when I started putting that energy into the idea of owning my own business,
right,
I didn't have a lot of capital. I had pretty much no capital. But I had my vision, I had my idea, I had my work ethic, and I had my, maybe you would call it reputation. I had a good reputation in the restaurant industry.
Well, usually too, it's our vision that creates the energy that we need to do the work.
Yeah.
Because I think if you have lack of vision, there's no way you can grit through what you've seen, right? From a new business standpoint, right? The vision is the energy that it takes to push through what I see you saying here that started at 100 hours,
That's the only way to do it.
And so
anybody that opens a business that thinks they're going to sit back and coast and, not have to work, you're going to work 5 times as hard.
Yeah, a great idea is just an idea.
Exactly, it's just an idea.
Right.
Until you put that dream into action,
right,
it's you're sitting on your couch thinking about it. And I was tired of sitting on my couch thinking about it, and I wanted to do something.
And I thought it was impressive when I saw, here that you were already paying back these angel investors within 1 year. So you started creating profit, I assume, which was wonderful within a year, because a lot of,
especially restaurants.
I'm looking at the statistics this morning, 60% of restaurants close within 1 year, 80% close within 5 years. But an interesting statistic that I did see was that these numbers are a little misleading when it comes to the ones that are not successful, right? Because 29% of the closed restaurants were actually old successful restaurants. So when we say closed, we don't mean they're all terrible business people and this restaurant idea seems super scary. It just actually means that some of the good ones are rolling away as some of the successful ones are moving forward.
Could have been circumstantial.
Right.
Trends change, tastes change, supply chain issues. Any number of things can cause it. A successful restaurant. And it's very, you can see a restaurant that appears to be successful.
Right.
But they could be hanging by a thread.
Right. Well, that sounds like most people's outfits and the cars they drive.
Exactly.
Right. So that's no different from a restaurant, right?
Looking at your neighbor, oh, they must be successful. They got the nice new car. You don't know they're paycheck to paycheck, hanging by a thread.
Well, I think it goes back to a lot of things, and I think this speaks to you too. I mean, a lot of times you can be a great cook, you can be a great waiter, you can be a great bartender. Doesn't make you a great business person.
That doesn't mean you can run a business.
Right. And so, I think that's kind of the difference I've seen in you, and as I've got to know you. Look, you've been involved in these jobs, but your real job is to run the business, and that's what you got to have. And so I'm impressed with that. So when you think about Roosters and you think about these statistics and the things that we understand, what is it about Roosters that's got it to where it is? Maybe talk about the teams, the systems, and and how you can help other people implement those teams and systems, even when it comes to the franchise side.
Yeah. So having enough capital to start, being prepared for fluctuations in the economy.
Right.
Too many restaurants, like we said a second ago, or like too many people where they're just paycheck to paycheck. You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail.
Yeah.
You got to have a cushion. You got to have some capital put away to weather the downtimes. You have to be prudent with your money. You have to be a good steward of your money, and a good steward because you have other lives. And this is the kind of stuff I think about every day. I have so many lives, not just my employees, but their families to think about. It's not just me. And so, I think when the business owner doesn't take that into account, I think that's a scary thing. But I think definitely with the restaurant business, enough capital and holding on to enough capital as a cushion is really important. And so understanding there's going to be fluctuations.
Let's talk about it a little more personally then. So what do you think it is about Roosters in itself and the dynamic of its own personal culture that actually sets it apart from the next restaurant?
Well, one thing is I tell my staff, we are not just in the food business, we're in the human experience business. And anybody can serve a burger or serve a Cuban sandwich, and it can be maybe great, maybe okay, maybe somewhere in the middle,
Right.
But what else are you going to be, how are you going to make the people that walk in the door, how are they going to feel when they leave? I'm not going to say we're perfect every moment and I would like to think so, but that's not reality. Restaurants are just like people. We're not perfect every day. There's days we fail. There's days people leave, maybe upset. That is what I think separates us or a business from just any other business or just any other restaurant is how do the people feel when they leave. And a couple examples, we got a review a couple years ago. It was a very busy night. I want to say it was like Art Walk or something like that, a very busy night. And we got a review the next day from a woman that said she brought in her family and she has a special needs child with disabilities.
Right.
And she gushed about how the staff treated him and treated their family.
Right.
And how my staff went above and beyond to be accommodating to him and just how it made her feel. The great part of the story is I was not there that night.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't there. And so had I been there, it still would have been wonderful.
Sure.
But the fact that I wasn't there and my staff executed that feeling for that person, I couldn't have thought of a better, as a business owner, a better feeling of being proud of my establishment and my staff that they executed that feeling for that customer.
So what would you give the credit to then for how you were able to get your team to perform at the same level of service and experience that you want when you're not there as when you are there?
Just constantly reiterating why we do what we do.
Right.
Trying to have even though I'm not there as much these days because I have another business, but trying to keep my finger on the pulse of that culture we've created, having great management that they translate my vision to the staff when I'm not there. They know my vision,
right,
and they execute it very well, and I pay them I think very well.
Sure.
And offer a lot of
fringe benefits,
and real benefits, and I operate with. I'm a big believer in the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
I came from the restaurant business before owning a restaurant. Some people own a restaurant; they might have done something else and then they owned a restaurant.
Right.
I've washed dishes.
Sure.
I've been the grunt all the way up to the manager.
Right.
And so now as the owner, I keep that in mind constantly. And so I think I have I don't know what you want to call it, a pretty good
understanding of what each employee is having to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So we call it employee psyche, right? If you can understand the psyche of every employee at every level, because you've been at that level, then you can communicate that with empathy.
Oh,
right?
exactly.
So I think what I've seen with you and with your staff is you're very good at getting to the empathy level, and they actually believe you because it's transparent, because it's actually coming from a place
It's real.
that you've been.
Exactly.
Right.
It's real. Yeah.
And so I think, when I see your sign and I see the things that you say, I love when it says, authentic Latin American food, right? And I think the part I love most about that is the food is definitely authentic. But I think what you're speaking to, and I think what you've done a great job at, is that you're actually authentic yourself.
I hope so.
And I think
it's hard to see the trees through the forest, but that is definitely what I try to.
That's right. And so I think
live my life.
What happens is, even organically, we'll say, is that if someone's actually authentic in who they are, and they're running their restaurant and they're running their employees in an authentic way, they actually don't need a lot of training to basically try to look like what they're trying to replicate.
Yeah.
Because it's your authentic, it's the
not phony.
Yeah, right. It's the authentic side of you that they actually want to identify with and that they appreciate. And so when you leave, they just want to replicate what you left behind. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times we have a lot of programs. We make them watch a lot of movies or whatever these training things are, and we bore our employees to death. We pay a ton of money for some type of employee training, when at the end of the day, if we could just be more transparent about who we are, who we used to be, and how we got here, we'll train everybody with that story.
That's
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I think this authenticity piece that you've created through your food and through your personal life has been a wonderful thing. And I think this is kind of what's bled you into some of these, the way that you share the profit of your company with some of these organizations I want to hear about.
Yeah.
And I know your brother probably has a lot to do with some of that in his stories, but like Eagles Landing House, some of these other things. Tell us what you're doing with some of these profits that you're getting, because you do run a successful, authentic company.
Well, I totally believe if you're going to have a business in a community, you need to go all in on that community, and you need to, in whatever way you can, be a part of that community and give back as much as you can. I mean, we are a for-profit business; we're not a charity, but but I mean, and that's how I provide for my family and my children, and that's how my staff provides for their families and themselves, and so. But beyond that, what else can we do for the broader community?
Sure.
And so, unfortunately, we lost my brother May 26th of 2009. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force.
Wow.
And he was a part of a reconstruction team. So he wasn't fighting, but he was there rebuilding. He had worked on a school for girls. He worked on irrigation systems for farmers, and they were currently working on a road project to help farmers get goods to markets.
Right.
And his convoy was hit by a Taliban insurgent in a car packed full of explosives, and killed my brother and 3 other people, and that was tragic, very tragic. He had 3 young children, and he had worked at the Pentagon for the Joint Chiefs of Staff before requesting to go to Afghanistan, and they named a room at the Pentagon in his honor, and I got to go there for the ceremony and stuff. But so anyway, that happened in 2009. That was well before I opened Roosters. But I always said, man, if I open my own business, I want to try to do something in his honor.
Sure.
So Roosters open, and I was like, all right, now I need to figure it out. So he passed away on Memorial Day. It was May 26, 2009.
Wow.
Happened to be Memorial Day, just a coincidence. And so what we do is we're closed on Memorial Day in his honor. And then the rest of the week we donate a portion of our sales to local military charities in his honor.
That's wonderful.
Well, to start, it wasn't local. I didn't really know of any local, and so the first thing I did was I reached out to his wife and I said, who do you think I should donate money to? And she said, well, my kids got to go to a wilderness adventure summer camp in Colorado called Knights of Heroes, and it's the children of fallen soldiers get to go to this summer camp. So the first 2 years we donated to that. They were a wonderful organization. But then the guy with the organization said, man, you might want to find something closer. I appreciate you donating to us, but maybe you could find something closer. I found something in New Orleans called Bastion. They help house homeless veterans. I donated to them, and then I found there was an organization here in Mobile that's very similar called Eagles Landing. I said, okay, well, I want to keep it home, keep it close. So several years ago, I started donating to Eagles Landing. So every year I present a check to them. I've gotten other people involved. Your neighbor, Panini Pete,
oh, yeah.
he donates, he's a big supporter of military charities. So got him involved and several other local businesses, and so every year I bring a check to them, and they use that money to fill up their pantry because the homeless veterans that come to live there, they need blankets and food and stuff. So that's what the money goes to. And then this year, there's a new organization called Veterans Recovery Resources, and John Kilpatrick started that, and that's an organization that is helping veterans with drug and alcohol addiction, helping them. There's inpatient and outpatient, and that's a great new organization that we donate to this year too. So now we're adding that to the list.
Well, I mean that's a lot of wonderful things, and
Well, if you come to the restaurant, you can read all about my brother in the hallway. There's memorabilia, pictures, and information about my brother. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess the cool part about that is your brother's not with us anymore, but the spirit of your brother lives on through Roosters, right?
And so keep his name alive, keep his name out there.
Well, wonderful job.
Lieutenant Colonel Mark Stratton.
Yeah, wonderful job at that. Wonderful
he was an
job.
amazing father, amazing. He loved his country, he loved God, and he loved his family. Right. Great American, great person.
Well, I want to tell you this. I think all the great parts of your brother that you appreciate, I see in you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And so, good job, brother.
Well, he inspired me to do better.
Well, we all need inspiration coming from somewhere to keep us all on track, right? And today you've inspired me, and I appreciate that for sure.
Thank you for saying so. Yeah.
So, finally, what do you think's next for Roosters? What's next? And when we're ending on that, I'd like to just know, where did Roosters come from? Like, how the name?
The name, okay.
Yeah, why
I get that asked a lot. Yeah,
yeah.
So I grew up on a farm. If we were going to have chicken for dinner, my dad would go in the backyard out of the barn, grab a chicken, cut the head off. I would chase the chicken around the yard. He would cut open the gizzard and get the rocks out and give them to me. So anyway, grew up with chickens. And then also I wanted a name that was easy for people to remember. I wanted a name that was also indicative of Latin culture. If you ever go to pretty much any Latin country, you're going to see chickens run around the streets. And even in America, you go to like Key West or something, where there's a large Latin population, that you're going to see roosters, chickens run around. And so it kind of fit just a few different, it kind of checked a few boxes for me. Easy to say, easy. I could picture somebody saying, "Hey, let's go to Roosters and get a taco." Just kind of rolled off the tongue.
So where do we want to see all these new roosters run around now? So what's the future of all these roosters?
Yeah, let's send them out of the hen house.
All right.
I built a franchise package for the business, and so I've got all the filing with the federal government and all the FDDs, all the operating manuals. Everything is condensed. I got a package ready. I'm looking for franchisees. So I'm looking for people to help us grow. I want to help somebody who maybe has a vision that they want to be their own boss. They want to be a business owner. They want to own a restaurant. They don't know how to start. They don't know, maybe they want a blueprint. And that's what we want to offer. We want to offer somebody a blueprint, a proven successful brand that can be replicated. And I think to start, the first few I would want within a maybe 1 or 2 hour drive, because I want to be really hands-on with the first few. I'm going to be very, even though it won't be a business partnership on paper, I would consider it a partnership in the way that I would be boots on the ground, helping this person create their own successful business using our brand.
Well, I mean, you have a vested interest in it, right? I mean, especially if it's that close. I mean,
if they're successful, I'll be successful.
The last thing you want is the first outside rooster out of the hen to be one that dies when your dad comes to pick them up, right? So nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that, yeah.
So, well, I think you've got a wonderful thing set up. I think anybody who's thinking about the franchise business and the restaurant business would be on the good track to have not only a partner, but a friend in something that I think that they can move forward in. And I think the spirit of it will be great. Thank you so much, Frankie, for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us. As we wrap up our discussion, let's reflect on Charles Colson's idea. How do you redeem a culture? He says, from the inside out. Authenticity isn't just a trend, It's a powerful catalyst for change. It begins with each of us. When we embrace our true selves, we can shed the mask imposed by social expectations that usually stifle our individuality. In families where authentic relationships are prioritized, everyone feels valued and heard, fostering open communication and love. This strong foundation can then extend into the wider community, encouraging others to embrace their own identity. As these ripples spread, we envision a culture that celebrates diversity and nurtures empathy. Imagine a world where every unique voice contributes to a harmonious collective. That's the transformative power of the marketplace mission. It has the potential to reshape our communities and ultimately our whole culture. By committing to live faithfully, inspiring those around us, we can spark meaningful change. Together, we hold the power to redeem our culture, one person at a time, and to keep our own individual authenticity. And today, we've seen a wonderful example of authentic Latin food represented by an authentic, wonderful guy. Thank you so much for coming by, buddy. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you everyone for tuning in to Marketplace Mission. Don't forget to follow us on social media and leave us a review. Until next time, unleash power in your workplace.